Hi guys, and welcome to another video. I've already eaten before filming today, so I'm at that really weird kind of 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock period where I'm really tired. So if I seem a bit off today, it's because I feel like I could fall asleep at any second. But anyway, so we're going to speak to Zzzzzzzzzzzzz, and things are going to change a little bit from this point on. If you have found Winds of Change kind of boring as we've been going forward, don't worry. This quest here, this is the last cleansing quest we'll have to do. After this, literally, okay, he said it a million times, this is the end. Okay, so Zzzzzzzzzzz says go into hard mode. There we go. He says we finally backed the afflicted into a corner. Brilliant. This is it, and you can believe him now. The other members of the ministry who were engaged at Drazek Thicket have joined us, and we're going to need their support. Do you remember that abomination we fought at Pongmei Valley? It's just like that, only this time it isn't alone. There's several of them. Well, that's the way of the world, isn't it? Nothing is ever easy. Nothing worth fighting for, anyway. But think of it. The land is finally purged, and Reiko's vision has been brought to fruition. The fighting can end, and the reconstruction can begin. The ancestors have looked upon us favourably thus far. Will you join us at the Morostav Trail to be part of our greatest victory? Alright, a few things before we start off. One, yeah, we're going to be fighting a lot of these big bosses. I guess we can talk about that when we get in there. But two, think of this, okay? This is the end of the affliction, right? All that stuff, all the way through factions. Finally, we are going to eliminate the last of them here. I get the impression ArenaNet was trying to make this quest seem really awesome and brilliant. Kind of similar to how what they did with the Luxon quest, with the Luxon one, where maybe we have to feel bad that we've kind of wiped them out and that was their last stand. Now kind of think of it as the afflicted have had their last stand, and now we are hunting down, I guess, the strongest of the afflicted that are still surviving. But this is it, alright? So we're going to say this is the last one. Let's make it momentous. No more afflicted. But of course, this isn't the end of Winds of Change. So, obviously, I'm not going to spoil anything, but things will continue to happen. The Ministry of Purity was set up just pretty much with the goals of empowering the common people to fight off the afflicted and, if you will, heal the land. So he just said, after this, the fighting can end. Well, can it? I mean, we are obviously playing an MMO where all we do is fight, so what's the rest of the story going to go? And this is why, after this, now that the afflicted are going to be gone, things start to get a little bit interesting, and things start to get really quite cool, if you ask me. Do you know what I really need to do? I need to change my UI so that I don't keep... Have you guys noticed this? I keep moving the party window around like this all the time. Anyway, so here's Zzzzzzzzzzz, and we've got lots of other ministry here. Zzzzzzzzzzz says, greetings friend, I hope this day finds you well, as he usually does. There are these other ministry here. The ministry that are kind of with you won't resurrect if they die. Zzzzzzzzzzz will, so what this means is while you're going through the quest, do try to keep your friends alive, because they will help you as you go further along. But, shit, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So, the last episode, actually, I mentioned that these other ministry, these generic ministry, don't have unique dialogue. I kind of meant clicking on them. They don't have unique dialogue in that sense. They do have dialogue, though. I'm not going to bother, while we're Let's Playing this, to try and read all of it out, though, because as you probably noticed, nobody commented on this, by the way, but if you did notice last video, they do have stuff to say. But it's set up in Winds of Change that a lot of these NPCs just scream constantly. Look, you can see it here. You will never see one of the Imperial Guard fight this well, blah blah blah. And they do say generally kind of interesting stuff. A lot of the time though, you'll see them repeating themselves over and over, but it's a lot of dialogue for me to, well, especially while I'm talking about some other random thing, probably while we're in the middle of a fight. It's quite a lot for me. Can you hear that car alarm? The ice cream van's already come by the way, sadly, because I've left a bit later to record. Okay, the car alarm's done. So yeah, they will be talking all the time. Feel free, please, to pause the video and look at some of the stuff they have to say. I keep getting all these ideas of things I want to do. I might do another video where I point out some of the interesting stuff and maybe actually provide some commentary on what they're talking about. But generally, I think it's pretty generic stuff they have to say. And at the end of the day, I've still got to do this dungeon thing as well, which I feel bad. I feel like this, like doing a video with just the dungeon books might be a bit pointless. What do you guys really want to see me do that? I'm not sure. I feel like I said I was going to do it, but I'm not sure whether I really will, because I'm not sure how much people really care about it. It is only the dungeon book. It's easy enough to just read it on the wiki, and that is all that would be in the episode. The original plan was that it was going to be kind of at the end of the dungeon series before we just started sort of doing purely focused on Guild Wars 2 lore blogs, I suppose. It was kind of just before we started that, and I completely forgot. And now it sort of won't be in a video among other things that kind of make it warranted. It would just be on its own, so I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so we're just going to keep going through the Morostav Trail. I haven't actually, as you can see, obviously not been many places here. I do need to actually move to that challenge mission down there at some point. We've not been here in many places. That's because, as I said last episode, we came to the Echovald Forest as Peter, not as Tom. So I kind of rushed through here. Somebody left a comment, actually. I think, yes, you are right, by the way. I don't think I replied to it. But I think that this was where the reason why we've come here on Tom is because of the Black Moa chick. I do think that must be it, because we had to come down here into the... oh, no, but you have to go... Yeah, it must have been, yeah. Well, no, because you dip the egg in down there, so I must have done that on a different character. I don't know why I've been here. I must have been doing something. It must have been something off camera that I was doing at some point. Oh, and there's so many loud noises outside right now. There's this complete dick that lives in my neighbourhood, right? And he's got himself a moped or something, and he keeps driving it up and down, days after days after days. You'd think he'd get bored after a while, and he just makes such a fucking racket. It's ridiculous. Anyway, yeah, so we're going to come over here, and you can start spying on what we've got to come. I actually really like this quest, just because of the big guys. I mentioned it last time when we only fought the big warrior. I like it. I like that they made them so big. So what the quest actually will involve us doing is fighting one of each of the 10 professions in the game, which does include, I think it's the 10 professions actually. No, you don't fight a Paragon one or a Dervish one. That would be cool. See, that could have been something they could have done in Winds of Change. They could have had like introduced Dervish Afflicted and Paragon Afflicted. That would have been sweet. It would have been awesome. They don't do that, so don't expect that. But basically what we're going to be doing is fighting one of the 8 professions then that were available in factions. I believe that means we fight a warrior as well once again. You can see over there they're actually fighting the natives of the forest. I should probably be focusing on the Giant Ash Ritualist who casts... If this Ritualist got the same skills as other Ritualists, then that means he's going to be using Spirit Rift and stuff. I'm not actually sure statistically what's necessarily different about these guys. I think that they, particularly for the warrior one in the other quest where we first found him, he definitely had a unique skill bar because he had all those kind of monking skills which most afflicted warriors don't have. But I think these guys have got exactly the same skill bars, they just have a lot of health. Generally, they're not much of a threat. They're big and they're impressive to see, but usually, in fact, this is the first time I've ever done this quest where I think I've aggroed 2 of these at once, as far as I can remember anyway. So usually it's just a matter of only aggroing 1 at a time. Here we've aggroed 3 at once, which probably wasn't a very good idea. We've aggroed a lot of things. That's the only reason I'm wiping. Don't get the wrong impression here. This quest actually isn't that bad at all. We haven't killed a single one, and he's so big I can't see his health bar. Can we please turn the camera somehow? That guy's health bar's alright. What about this? No, okay, so we've wiped there. That's ridiculous. You can... look, I'll come back. We'll be careful, and we will dominate the quest. Don't worry. Don't you worry. Oh, there is a res point right here as well, so it couldn't be easier. Couldn't be easier. Though me wiping there does mean that the Ministry, as I mentioned before, will now be dead, and they're not going to be re-resed. Unless they somehow survived. I doubt they did. Come on, let's kill this Ritualist. So yeah, there's one of each profession. They might just have more health. I'm not 100% sure. But that's really it for the quest. The objective is just to kill them all. They'll all be wandering around this general area, which I think is quite cool. I don't ever really remember any quests going on here. There are a lot of weird quests around in the Echovald Forest, like Deep Echo. I call this Deep Echovald, and I call it the Deep Jade Sea as well in the corresponding area. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because it's quite far into the territory, but that's kind of how I've always named it in my head. Oh, look, he's blocking. Maybe this is why he's surviving. Maybe I should just be targeting a different character. I mean, Christ, look, let's kill this monk. Kill the monk who's using reversal of damage and stuff. Knock him down. Oh my god, why are we wiping? Never had any problems on this one before, but again, it's because we're kind of resurrecting into a group with loads of things there. We did kill an awful lot more here. And hey, brute forcing, clovers, yay. Keep killing them. So yeah, we've had some dialogue. I'll stop rambling. 1 bit of dialogue, is that it, really? Okay, well, Zayri said, the world is waking up from your nightmare. Come and meet your end. I wonder if he just says that to be dramatic, or he actually believes that the afflicted can hear him. It's kind of weird. It is weird. I did definitely, when I first played Winds of Change, as I said, we've done a lot of quests. It's all been just killing afflicted. I mentioned this really when we started, and I do think it's worth reiterating again. All these quests you've been seeing throughout this entire Let's Play, it's all been pretty standard stuff, right? Just kill afflicted here, kill afflicted here. Got a little bit interested in the 4- and 6-man areas, but generally all the cleansing has been pretty boring. But when I first played through, it must have been about Minister Cho's estate when it became quite difficult and I started thinking more about the quest that we were doing. It really did start to twig me. It started to feel good, like killing each afflicted, particularly here, the really big ones. It's like you could be like, yeah, look, we're killing this guy and we're never going to see any more Mesmer afflicted about, and this is going to be the last ranger we have to kill. Not exactly, because there's lots of little ones around here. But there is something good about actually playing the game and feeling that here and knowing that things are going to change. Of course, it felt significant at the time, but looking back since I've completed Winds of Change, I don't think I've done any Cantha content. I don't seriously. I don't think I've done any, I definitely haven't done any Vanquishes or anything like that sitting in the versions of the explorable areas where they've been cleansed. So even though I've cleansed the areas, I've not really experienced wandering around with the scavengers and stuff there, simply because I'm level 20. I've completed all the stuff. I've obviously already completed factions. What do I care about going back to these areas? There's nothing for me to do there, so why would I really care that there are lots of scavengers there now? But there is still something nice about that, and especially if you're a player who maybe hasn't vanquished or stuff like that, that is something to look forward to. In fact, it's very interesting now. I don't think, because this is Winds of Change, there are definitely less people playing the game now, and this is pretty new content. There hasn't really been a very exhaustive look, especially on the wiki at least, of what it's like vanquishing and generally playing the game now once you've completed Winds of Change, and whether it's generally favourable to have the new mobs that are maybe less common in the areas but are harder to kill. They haven't really gone into much detail about that. I'd still assume it's easier to vanquish with the afflicted mobs everywhere, but even though it might be easier, you might generally find it more fun to play with the new mobs. Just because it's something different to see, you know. You've already seen the default mobs when you played through factions the first time. Why not experience something slightly different? There are general bits of like information around on the wiki that talk about, oh hey, this is different now, this is slightly different now, but there's not that much. In fact, I remember just before I started filming and I checked wiki for this one, I did read something interesting. What was that? There's something different about this place. Oh yeah, something to bear in mind. Okay, if you haven't got like skills, all the skills in the game, like the elite skills, and you're going for that title, once you've completed this quest, the spawns will change and it will get rid of the Shiroken in the area in particular. Do you remember that there are Shiroken bosses? There are construct bosses in a lot of the areas and late factions. In fact, just after when you're introduced to the Shiroken, essentially, there tend to be like one in an explorable area every now and then. Well, the Shiroken boss that's here is the Ritualist's construct, okay? And all of these Shiroken bosses, they all had interesting green skills and stuff. My favourite Mesmer staff for a very long time, until way after Nightfall. I think it was into Eye of the North before I started to look at other ones. My favourite Mesmer staff came from one of them. It was called the Cowlin Domination Staff, which comes from the Mesmer construct. Anyway, these constructs are quite good because the Ritualist one in particular offers you soul twisting as its elite ability. If you complete this quest, that guy won't spawn anymore until obviously you complete Winds of Change, and then you have the option to revert the spawns. So if you do it, be aware that you won't be able to capture that, and the only other place that you can capture it sounds like it's a bit of a pain in the arse. So that's probably spent ages talking about that when really nobody's going to care. But there you go, just in case. Hey, maybe one day this will have helped one person. It's kind of interesting actually when we were doing the Huts of the North stuff for the bounty hunting stuff at the end where we were getting the feast prepared. So it's that thing where you were at the garden, and if you just finished Vabi, you'd then have to complete all of Nightfall so that you could actually get into the garden. And I was like, oh, somebody out there will be caught out by this, so do bear it in mind. Somebody had been caught out. I got a comment like 3 or 4 weeks later from someone who said, yeah, this caught me out. I'm now screwed. I have to complete all of Nightfall to be able to finish Hearts of the North. Such a shame. I feel bad for you, man. But I can, you know, everyone's had something like that happen to them, I'm sure. In not just in Guild Wars, but in most games, everyone's had something like that happen to them. You just kind of got to roll with the punches when that shit happens. But yeah, so yeah, as you can see here, this Afflicted Warrior, he's got the same horrible build that he had before. I don't know why, maybe they just got bored. They definitely changed his build to something different, but they didn't with the other Afflicted. Was it just because they didn't have much time to put into Winds of Change? I mean, it's interesting. I wonder how much they wanted to do with Winds of Change that they never managed to in the end. Especially with Part 3, because that doesn't have any side quests in it. And it took them a long time to put out Part 3, a really long time. The gap was massive. And yet when it finally came out, they only had like 6 or 7 quests, and there was no side quests either. I mean, was that because they spent so much time on the rewards? Because there were some cool rewards there, but you know, that's the artists that were creating the unique weapon skins and stuff. That wasn't necessarily the developers and the designers figuring out exactly, oh, I'm glad my characters finally moved in. That was really weird fighting from a while away. It wasn't exactly the designers sorting that stuff out. All they had to do was work on the quest, but there was really little content for the last part, especially in considering how much time they took. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on in ArenaNet. Maybe it's because they were focusing on other things. Hey, maybe some of the festivals or something, because there have been a few new things spattered around every now and then. It's just like the live team have been putting out such weird updates lately, like random fixes to very odd little things that people have got used to in the game. Like in Urgo's Warren, I think I might have mentioned this on one video at some point. In Urgo's Warren, for the longest time, and you'll see if you see my coverage of it, I mentioned this, you could only complete it if you had a teleportation skill to get up to this lever on a bridge. And people just kind of assumed, oh hey, yeah, this is just a function of the mission. This is fine, whatever. And we all got used to it. No one really was crying out for that to be changed. And yet, randomly, a few months ago, they decided to add an NPC you can speak to, so you don't need a teleportation skill. Who was asking for that? What made them think to do that out of the millions of other things that they could be doing? Very weird. Anyway, that was quite significant there, guys, and I was talking about something else. Please bow your heads for a moment, because you have just witnessed what could possibly be the extinction of the afflicted. Zayri says, I can't believe it. I've spent over a year of my life working towards this day, and now that it's here, I don't know how to feel. I only hope that my father is at rest now and I have done his memory proud. Yes, do not forget this, actually. I think you can forget it now, because I don't think that whole father plot ever really comes back forward unless I'm missing something big. We reply, I'm certain that he is. What will you do next? This is the big question. I think I'd like to visit Tanakai Temple before I return home. I have some respect to pay to the departed. I hope that our paths will cross again. Okay, Zayri. Well, when will they cross again? We'll find out soon enough. But yeah, there you go, guys. That's the end of the afflicted. Very interesting. I like the idea, okay? A lot of people will cringe at the thought. I like the idea that in Guild Wars 2, when we finally come back to Cantha, somewhere in some forgotten corner of the old city, you know, the Undercity maybe, buried under all the new advances that Kaineng's gone through, and how maybe now, come Guild Wars 2, it's a perfectly clean, wonderful city. I like the idea that there might be a dungeon that takes you deep back down into the dragon's throat that maybe has been long lost and collapsed down, and nobody's been in there for years, and down there you find in one rotting corner a load of afflicted, and then there's like a threat that they'll break out again, and one of the dungeons is like to finish off the afflicted. I'd love it if they made a comeback in Guild Wars 2. Not because I particularly like the enemy faction, I really don't. They're horrible, they're all over the place, and they're so depressing to see, but they were a big part of factions, a massive part of factions. I think it would be awesome to be able to go into Guild Wars 2 and see them once again, and hate them once again. So hey, maybe this isn't the last of the afflicted. If I was working at ArenaNet, I'd make sure it wasn't. But there you go, guys. For Guild Wars 1, certainly that is it. No more afflicted. Zayri says, well done. There's no way that we could have done this, come this far without your aid. You should speak with Zan Hai and Zakwang Skyway. There we go, I said it right. I'm certain he will wish to personally reward you for your efforts now that our job is done. As for me, I intend to go home and rest. But only a brief respite. There is still so much to do, is there? Okay, right. Kind of part one of Winds of Change, this first chapter, this first update that came out. I always split into two sections. We've just done the first one. The second section we will now be moving on to, which involves some very different quests on some different stuff. What's happening with the Ministry of Purity now, guys? I guess we will find out next time. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see. Do you know what? I might tomorrow do all those dialogues for having cleansed the area. I might do this. This feels like a good point to do that. Maybe tomorrow's episode will take like a brief break and go find all those dialogues around the place. I quite like that idea. In any case, whatever I plan to do, I'll figure that out before tomorrow. Thanks very much for watching, guys, and I guess I'll see you next time. See you later.